100%. In 40 years of reporting on the rhythmic pulse of global politics, that is a number I have rarely seen outside the borders of an autocracy. Yet here we are in March 2026, looking at data that defies the standard laws of political gravity. Donald Trump holds a staggering, absolute 100% approval rating among his MAGA base. It is a feat of ideological consolidation that would make the most disciplined political machines of the 20th century envious. But as any veteran of the press room will tell you, a base that is perfectly sealed often becomes a vacuum, and in politics, vacuums are rarely where elections are won. While the Trump faithful have formed an impenetrable phalanx around the 47th president, the broader electoral landscape tells a far more precarious story. The very same data that shows total devotion from the base reveals a deepening fracture with independent voters and those moderate Democrats who crossed the aisle in 2024. If the midterms were held today, the Republican Party would likely watch the House of Representatives slip through their fingers. The math is as cold as it is unforgiving. You cannot govern a continental superpower on the fervor of a base alone, no matter how absolute that devotion may be. This internal tension is spilling out onto the American pavement. Across the country, anti-war protests are erupting with a ferocity we haven't seen in years, sparked by the recent American strikes against Iranian assets. But as a journalist who has watched movements rise and fall, from the anti-Vietnam rallies to the Arab Spring, I've learned to look for the invisible hands. There are serious, mounting questions regarding the astroturfing of these protests. Investigatory reports are now zeroing in on groups like the Answer Coalition, suggesting a sophisticated network of funding and coordination that transcends simple grassroots anger. When signs, high-end audio equipment, and synchronized transportation appear simultaneously in dozens of cities, it suggests a logistical backbone that smells of professional orchestration, potentially fueled by foreign interests looking to capitalize on American domestic discord. This internal tension is spilling out onto the American pavement. Across the country, anti-war protests are erupting with a ferocity we haven't seen in years, sparked by the recent American strikes against Iranian assets. But as a journalist who has watched movements rise and fall, from the anti-Vietnam rallies to the Arab Spring, I've learned to look for the invisible hands. There are serious, mounting questions regarding the astroturfing of these protests. Investigatory reports are now zeroing in on groups like the Answer Coalition, suggesting a sophisticated network of funding and coordination that transcends simple grassroots anger. When signs, high-end audio equipment, and synchronized transportation appear simultaneously in dozens of cities, it suggests a logistical backbone that smells of professional orchestration, potentially fueled by foreign interests looking to capitalize on American domestic discord. This demographic shift in this descent is equally startling. New polling indicates that nearly 60% of liberal American women under the age of 45 are now expressing a willingness to engage in civil disobedience or even break the law to oppose the current administration's interventions. This is no longer a fringe movement. It is a radicalization of the American center-left that creates a fertile hunting ground for foreign influence operations. And make no mistake, the foreign influencers are playing a masterful game. On the geopolitical chessboard, Russia and China are no longer merely spectators. They are active participants in the Iranian theater. Intelligence confirms that Moscow is now funneling high-resolution satellite imagery and advanced drone telemetry directly to Tehran. Their objective is transparent. They want to keep the United States bogged down in a grueling, expensive, and politically divisive Middle Eastern quagmire.
Every American missile fired at an Iranian site is a win for the Kremlin, as it diverts focus, funding, and military hardware away from the Ukrainian front. Trump finds himself in a classic strategic pincer move, engaged in a peace negotiation with Putin on one side, while Putin's tech is actively targeting American interests on the other. But the real battlefield of 2026 isn't just in the skies over Isfahan, it's in the grocery aisles and the shipping ports. We are currently witnessing a trade war of unprecedented proportions. Following the 2025 implementation of aggressive 60% tariffs on Chinese goods, the economic fallout has hit the American household with the force of a sledgehammer. Current estimates suggest these tariffs have effectively functioned as a $1,000 tax hike on the average American family. The legal drama intensified this month when the Supreme Court, in a landmark 6-3 ruling, checked the president's power under the International Emergency Economic Powers Act, declaring that such sweeping tariffs cannot be imposed indefinitely without the explicit consent of Congress. This has forced the administration into a tactical retreat, pivoting to lower 10% tariffs under Section 232, citing national security. Across the Pacific, China is in the throes of an economic death spiral. They are now enduring their 38th consecutive month of producer price deflation. Their property sector, once the engine of their miraculous growth, lies in ruins. This desperation is making Beijing more dangerous, not less. They are attempting to export their way out of a recession by flooding global markets with ultra-cheap manufactured goods, a move that Washington views as an act of economic aggression. There's a popular myth that China holds the nuclear option because of its vast holdings of U.S. Treasury debt. However, the reality of 2026 shows a different picture. Beijing has been aggressively dumping U.S. debt, falling to third place behind Japan and the United Kingdom. This isn't just a threat to the U.S., it's a suicide mission for China. Selling off treasuries at this scale drives up the value of the yuan, which would effectively kill off their remaining export competitiveness. We are locked in a state of mutual assured economic destruction. As we look at the horizon of 2026, the narrative of the art of the deal is being tested by the brutality of reality. Donald Trump sits atop a mountain of 100% approval from his followers, yet he is surrounded by a sea of rising discontent, foreign subversion, and an economic landscape that is shifting beneath his feet. In 40 years, I've seen many leaders mistake the roar of their own crowd for the voice of the nation. History suggests that those who failed to distinguish between the two often find themselves silenced by the very events they thought they controlled. The question is no longer whether the base will hold. The question is whether the nation can hold the weight of so many simultaneous crises before something fundamentally snaps.